Thank you. I now recognize Mr. Donalds from Florida for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I'm in committee at the opportune time. Look, this is a great hearing about bringing manufacturing stock back to the United States. At the end of World War II, about 40% of the world's manufacturing capacity was here in America. Today, depending on who you ask, maybe around 15%, maybe lower, maybe a little bit higher. I would ask all three of the witnesses, actually I'll ask you too, Mr. Hirsch, what has actually been the #1 driver for a lack of manufacturing capacity in the United States since World War II? Mr. Power.
Thank you for the question, sir. In my mind, it is specific CCP policies that have artificially subsidized well past the cost of good jobs and competitive labor in America, where, if you'll remember, there was a large language model like DeepSeek that got released by China, and they're charging, 1/100th of a use case versus OpenAI. And they're doing that to draw the consumer into using that product more and more and more, which obviously then captures data. It is the same sort of industrial policy that has been going on for the last 40 years, where we could buy a block of raw material in the United States of aluminum, and it will be twice as expensive as the fully landed cost, including shipping, of that same component from China. And it is not possible for them to be so cheap and competitive, apart from the slave labor conditions, because they aggressively subsidize energy, raw materials, and kind of reverse tariffs, where if I sell something to you from China to the US, I get a subsidy back from the CCP. It is a strategic policy that has pulled manufacturing out of the United States for the last 40 years, and it's been done very intentionally. So it is artificial, anti-competitive subsidies that have pulled that cost base out of the United States and therefore destroyed millions and millions of American jobs, is my opinion on the one core reason.
Mr. Zinger, if you choose to add or bring your own knowledge.
Yeah, I'll add something briefly, which is if you look at 2000, China had a 7% global manufacturing market share in 2000. That was a brief 25 years ago. With WTO, I'd say two things. Going to what Mr. Power said, we did not enforce any of these violations by China after we gave them most favored nation status. And obviously, they understand that national security is directly connected, and being a world power is directly connected to global manufacturing market share. And they went about using a set of policies to capture that. At the same time, I would say driven primarily by some of our large technology companies, we started to outsource manufacturing to companies like Foxconn. So if you look at the actual kind of industry 4.0 scale up of automated CNC machining, computer numerically controlled machining, between, I'd say, 2006 and 2016, you saw Apple pour $100 billion plus into Foxconn, a China-based contract manufacturing company. And they went from a couple hundred CNC machines to 150,000 automated lights out by 2016. Those two things, allowing people to cheat and undermine you from a national strategy, global strategy standpoint, and then having our process IP from our most advanced and process IP relating to manufacturing from our most advanced companies offshored to contract manufacturers and building that contract manufacturing industry around Foxconn and other contract manufacturers. That's what drove it.
Thank you, Mr. Zinger. Mr. Bishop.
Just to echo what both of my colleagues here have said, I mean, especially if you drill into the supply chains that go into the DoD right now, and the massive permissive use of waivers to, I mean, there are already plenty of rules in place that would, in theory, disallow everything from electronic components to just basic machine parts that go into all of the crucial material and devices that our warfighters use. And the reality is just the massive rampant use of waivers has been a huge problem. And when you actually go and drill down into that supply chain, you're finding not only direct links to China, which are the easy ones to find, but this huge web of shell companies and shell relationships between shell companies that effectively allow China to have I mean, first of all, a huge supply chain risk directly in the DoD and anywhere wherever we want to project power.
Well, gentlemen, Mr. Hirsch, I'm sorry. 5 minutes goes fast in this town. I appreciate that. I think it's important for the committee to recognize that, while the goal overall is to bring manufacturing back to the United States in as much of a capacity we can, either onshore or near shore, one thing is crystal clear. We have not been minding the store in the United States when it comes to trade policy writ large, especially when it comes to enforcement of trade policy. And with that, I yield back.